viewers, and welcome to our program, The Business Brief, where we unpack a number of complex issues transpiring in our economy. This afternoon, we are blessed to be hosting two legal experts, and to my right is Tendai Nyamanindi, and on my left side is Alex Majachani. Welcome, colleagues, to the program.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So, to begin with, Alex, we want to discuss the Consumer Protection Act, which was promulgated at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic back in 2020, and most citizens may have missed a lot of pertinent details pertaining to this act. Maybe if you start by introducing to our viewers what the Consumer Protection Act entails.
Thank you very much, Alois. Indeed, the Consumer Protection Act is a very important piece of legislation. You will notice that the Act was itself published in December 2019, and it was almost that time when the COVID was around the corner. And the purpose of the Act basically, maybe so that viewers would understand, is to consolidate consumer laws. And you appreciate that prior to its introductions, we had a disjointed, framework for regulating consumer rights, regulating the marketplace. There was no consolidated system of managing the market in relation to the consumer. So basically, if you look at the Consumer Protection Act, you actually understand that it's basically an act that is there then to protect rights of consumers. And the act itself, it defines who a consumer is. So in short and in summary, it says one person who is acting in the course of consuming goods and services, while at least the other party is also acting in the course of business. But it also includes categories like wholesalers, retailers, who may also want to buy, to retail, to sell, but it excludes those who acquires goods in the purpose of production. So in summary, so the act is there to protect the consumer in the market.
Okay, no, thank you so much, Alex. Now, coming to you, Tendai, what type of rights are protected under the Consumer Protection Act?
Okay, thank you very much for the question. So there are several entitlements that have been given to the consumer by the statute, and these include the right to health and safety, the right to choose, the right to information, the right to be heard. So some of these rights were previously provided for in the previous act and have now been broadened. The scope of the rights has been broadened by this particular act.
Okay, Alex, coming back to you, what would you elaborate, how would you elaborate like the right to choose? The right to information, because many times consumers find themselves having bought the wrong product after being misled by a wrong advert, and so how are these rights really protected? What do they entail?
Indeed, Alois. Alois, what I want you to know, I might want this to be emphasized, especially for the viewers. The act is very expansive.
Okay.
The act is very elaborate, and I believe most of the businesses, they don't really appreciate this act. I'll just give you an example. The act provides that whenever there is direct marketing, it's actually defined. Direct marketing, where you're just marketing your goods, either through electronic means or you are marketing to your customers, and then the customer comes and picks a product, they buy it. And then they take it home, and then they say, if a customer takes that product and they discover for no reason that they no longer want the product, they're allowed within 5 days to return your good, and you're expected to refund them without asking questions.
Okay.
That's one of the provisions that you might want to know. And then the other right to choose is also entails that a customer has the right to deal with the supplier that they want. You would also appreciate that there are certain suppliers who say, for me to sell this thing to you, maybe those things are in scarcity. you'll have to maybe do this and this and this. You know what used to happen during times of maybe famine or maybe scarcity of products. Those conditions are completely outlawed.
Okay.
And the Act provides even a 6 months window period within which certain goods may be retained by a customer without incident.
Okay, quite interesting there that customers are now allowed to be retaining goods at will. But now coming to you, Tendai, so what then happens? I'm a businessman, I've paid tax in between the 6 months when the customer bought these goods, and after 6 months he's knocking at my door to return the goods. How is that addressed in the Act?
So in terms of the Act, if a client buys something from the supplier and within 6 months they find out that there's a defect or that there are issues and they would wish to return the product, the Act allows them to return the product. And as a supplier, you have options. It's either you may offer to repair the product, then you take it back to the client in that state. But there's also an issue there. When you repair the product, if there's another defect or there are any other issues within a period of 3 months after the repair of such product, you are also under an obligation to then replace the product or refund. So whenever a client comes back with the product, whenever a consumer comes back with the product, it's either they are refunded, it's either you replace the product or you repair the product. So those are the options that are available to a supplier.
Okay, fine. Alex, now, coming back to you again, what are the worst scenarios which you can see being derived from this Consumer Protection Act for those who breach certain sections? Are there a few sections which you would like to share with our viewers on what the implications will be if someone breaches it?
Yes, Alois. I might not remember some of the sections,
Okay.
but well, Section 10, Alois, it brings the right of customers to safety, the goods that they acquire. It talks about the value of the goods. It talks also about the substance of the goods. Then it goes to Section 11. It brings in the idea of an implied warrant. The implied warrant is that what has been talked about in Section 11 is impliedly warranted in the goods that you have sold. It doesn't matter always that you are the producer, you are the retailer, you are the wholesaler, or you are somewhere in the chain of production. So what I want you to know now, the implied warrant, the implications on the implied warrant is that within a period of 6 months, if that warrant is breached, the customer is at liberty to return.
Okay.
And without consequence.
Okay.
Right. The other section, which is very important and key, if I'm not mistaken, should be Section 21. It deals with those displays that some suppliers put to say no returns, no exchanges, no refunds. It's completely outlawed.
Okay.
In as much as it contravenes any provision of the Act. And Alois, if you may allow me to just show you briefly, this Act, Alois, it has 92 sections.
92 sections.
What then it means that suppliers and manufacturers, the producers, they have to understand this Act.
Okay.
So it means that if you put a no return, no refund, no exchange notice, and then you are caught, that section says you can be imprisoned for 5 years. Or you are liable to a level 14. If I'm not mistaken, Tendai is the highest level of fines in Zimbabwe.
Okay.
So it has far-reaching consequences.
Okay, maybe to cut you short there, Tendai, we are living in an economy where the majority of the business is being undertaken in the informal sector. How does that Act also capture the informal sector? Can I go downtown to those tax shops and tell them that, look, I'm now applying the Consumer Protection Act against you? Are they also covered by that one?
I would like to think that they are definitely covered, because if we go to Section 16, it provides who can be held liable in terms of the Act. Maybe if we can just go to Section 16. Let me just repair. So Section 16 provides that the liability for damage caused by goods. So for any violation, it applies to the producer of the product, to any person who, by putting his or her name on the product using a trademark or other distinguishing mark in relation to the product, has held himself out to be the product producer, any person who has imported the product into the country in order in the course of any business of his or hers to supply it to another, the distributor, retailer, or supplier of goods. So I'd like to think that in terms of this section, it definitely extends to the informal sector.
Okay, so now, Alex, how do members of the public bring this into application? Someone has been wronged. Where do they go to? Whom do they report to?
Indeed, Alois, thank you. Alois, the Act has put in place mechanisms. One of them is the Consumer Protection Commission.
Okay.
The commission from the Act itself, the Act is very clear on the roles of the commission, and part of the role is that the commission, it hears complaints from the public, then adjudicates over the complaints. It also conducts arbitration. I would explain a little bit. You do know that arbitration is a process that is triggered by some arbitration agreement. So it means that if the agreement was subject to an arbitration agreement or clause, then you use arbitration procedure. But the commission will do that. Then the commission again, it refers certain cases to courts. Okay, I'm going to put the commission aside. The customer who has knowledge of this act has a right to go directly to any court. If you check in section 2, it defines the word court to include the magistrate's court, the high court. Actually, it says the magistrate's court, I think the high court, and then any other courts which are within the system of the of the judicial system. So what it means is that if then I feel like I'm aggrieved, I can go straight to the magistrate's court if my claim is within the jurisdiction. And I was also talking to you about penalties and imprisonment. If I feel like, oh, you have displayed wrongly this and I've been prejudiced, I can go into the police and you're arrested.
And report.
So I think the act is, I don't know. But I believe that the business community needs to know about this act. And some of us as well, as we are reading this act, sometimes you get the shock to say, oh, is there something like this in this act? You know what I'm saying? So I think there needs to be massive educational campaigns by the Consumer Council of Zimbabwe or by the Commission itself. And I believe that a lot of people end up in jail with this act.
So today, I think I haven't been following up much on that, but I don't know if you have also been following up to find out whether the commission which is supposed to enforce that act is already in place, or it's something which is still work in progress.
Okay, I would like to think that the commission is already there,
Okay.
and in place, and the commission is also responsible for referring matters to court, and the commission also makes decisions which can be registered and enforced in a court of law. And further, consumers can also appeal or make an application for review for matters that have been determined by the commission.
Okay, Alex, it also appears that there's been a huge gap in terms of awareness, education and awareness campaigns around this Consumer Protection Act. What do you suggest needs to be done to make sure that there's an acceleration of awareness of this act?
Indeed, Alice. Alice, it's the situation that we've been on. The reason why I'm saying so, the criminal penalties that are in this act, they are something that is a shocker.
Okay.
If I say shocker, I'm saying something that if someone just takes the act and reads, they say, oh. So what then it means is that I think really substantial efforts have to be made. So what I think needs to be done is that there is the Consumer Council of Zimbabwe. It used to do those, public awareness campaigns, teaching people. They can now, with the era after the COVID, people are now used to electronic ways of teaching people about certain or educating people on certain things. And I believe there are so number of, forums to do those things. And there's the commission itself, if you check in the Act, is also mandated to ensure that there's education. And that maybe brings me to one of the rights of consumers, right? And the right to education. I think this I might need to read to you, Alois. The right to education, yeah, section 9. I'll just read it. I think that's very important even for viewers. Quickly. Section 9, it says, right to consumer education and awareness. And it says, a consumer has the right to consumer education, which includes, but not limited to, information on the environmental impact, so on, so. Number 2, where appropriate, consumer education may be incorporated into the educational system, which means it can go to the primary level, secondary level, tertiary level, right? It can focus on product hazards, all those things. Then if you go to your section, I just want to just confirm on the section on the commission. The commission also has section 4. It says there shall be established a commission within the Consumer Protection Commission, which shall be a board corporate entity. Lists all the functions, and one of the functions is also to ensure that consumer education is actually done. And I believe that's doable, and I believe the government is to apportion appropriate budget and put resources in place, educate, and also as lawyers, as part of also social responsibility, programs, and other, professionals, we can also do that, because I believe this act is quite comprehensive in terms of what its requirements, and we may end up with a lot of problems and suits in their courts.
So I'm also thinking that there's this issue of fair contractual agreements, and I'm thinking about this in the context of a highly informalized economy, where sometimes you don't have to sit down on a table, get pen and paper, and append our signatures. What does this right entail, the right to fair contractual agreements?
Okay. So I think that it entails that all contracts can be enforced, whether verbal or oral. So whenever we get to look at a contract, there are certain conditions that we're going to look at and say, is this a fair condition in a contract? So this act envisages to protect consumers from these unfair contracts, where there are certain clauses that have been put into a contract and they are deemed to be unfair. A court of law can make a decision and say that this part of the contract should be struck off, or this contract cannot be enforced, or they can even go as far as ordering cancellation of the contract where unfair clauses have been put into the contract.
Okay, now, Alex, I'm still, very excited about this, the right to information. That as a consumer, I have the right to information. What does this entail? Does just this end at displaying of prices, etc.? How far does this go?
Thank you, Always. I when you talked about prices, then I thought Tendai would assist us on that part. But,
Yes.
but what I would just say is that, always, because people want to make money, they have a tendency of sometimes concealing the negative side of certain things that they are. And you remember Tendai talked about section 16.4, which says that when it comes then to liability on a product, it extends from wherever the importer, the producer, the whatever. So what now they are saying is that if there are certain qualities of the product which might actually cause maybe a hazard, or the product requires to be handled in a particular way, or maybe the product it's being advertised in an exaggerated way, or the side effects of the products are not clearly outlined, right? That's right to information. And the right information affects the bargaining, maybe the bargaining extent. You know what I'm saying? Right? The extent to which I want to pay. Right? You can tell me, this car can fly like a helicopter. You understand? That means I'm ready to pump out money, which accords to a flying car. But then I realize, no, that car is not a flying car. It's actually a tortoise. So all those things. So that's the right to information, information of the product, so that I know can I take the product. This is why then I think the Act talks about cooling periods, to say, if you market a thing to me, and then I discover that, this thing does not really approximate what has been said, I have the right to return it within 5 days, or within 6 months, without
Okay.
an incident. I think the other part on
Okay.
prices, Tendai can talk about the issue of information on price.
Yeah, also information.
I think for that one, we can refer to section 26 of the Act, which provides for the right to disclosure of information regarding goods or services and disclosure of prices. So I think that these are situations that we meet on a daily basis. You get into a shop, you want to buy groceries, perhaps sugar is advertised for 1000 RTGS. And there's also another sticker which says it's also going for 1,850. So the Act states that where there are two different prices that are advertised for the same product, the lowest price is the one that is applicable. So then we also have a scenario, I think this happens all the time in shops, where we can have a price that has been attached for days and then the price goes up. Then they take another sticker, they put it on top of the product, of the previous price. So the Act also provides for such a situation, and it states that where they have managed to properly conceal the previous price, the one that you can see on top is the one that is applicable. So I think these are things that consumers need to be aware of, and also circumstances where probably they advertise a higher price than the price that would normally be charged for that particular product. The Act also touches on that. So it seeks to protect consumers in different aspects. So Section 26 is of great importance to every consumer.
So yeah, Alex, here we go. I've got the right to choose, but unfortunately I've been exposed to an advert which says if you buy lotion A, your skin color will be lightened. I realized that 3 months down the line, I'm still as dark as I was before. Tell me, what then happens to the manufacturer or the seller of that product? Does that advert come into perspective also as an influencing factor which determines my right to choose?
Thank you, Alois. You know, Alois, as we were talking, I'm just thinking about civil remedies. You know, what I've noted from the Act is expansive, like I said.
Okay.
In the sense that, remember, there are matters for which the Commission can deal with. The Commission can deal with complaints. The Commission can deal with, the customer can take it as a complaint to the Commission.
Okay.
Or the customer say, no, but you know what, this guy is, I was supposed to have been married. I'm just talking from a very, can I say, very wild scenario.
Okay.
I could have been married if I had taken the lotion. But I have not been married because the guy I was eyeing did not
approach me.
So that then it becomes an issue of then seeking compensation. But I'm saying it's a very flowery situation.
Okay.
But I'm thinking of remedies that are ordinary when you go to a court, right? For example, even not talking about what he said, you can go for an interdict, relying on the Act, right? You can even go for a compelling order, which is again an interdict of some sort.
Okay.
You can go for damages that have been prejudiced financially, right? Because you understand the consumers is not like us buying lotion only. You can also buy big things. I'm a consumer. So with the lotion thing, I'm just thinking that either they can raise a complaint with the Commission, or you can go for arbitration if that permits, or you can go to a high court or magistrate court, depending on your claim.
So, okay, I know lawyers, you talk about, you call it case law. Have there been any cases tried under this Act which you can share with our viewers?
Indeed, Alois, I think very soon you'll be a lawyer. You know why I'm saying so?
Yes.
I've been trying to scout for cases, and because the Act is very live and interesting.
Okay.
And I believe there will be a lot of cases. But I believe that because we are coming out of the COVID,
After COVID.
there hasn't been a lot of activity. But I foresee that in the next 1 year or so. But I'll tell you something. Yes, I would say yes. Maybe at the same time I would say maybe no.
Okay.
But yes, because we had other cases which may not be very direct.
Okay.
For example, I came across a case which was involving ZESA. That case was the case of provision of electricity, but ZESA was trying then to disconnect electricity. It was a case which was decided in Blawayo. I think it was 20... but I think that was just prior to the actual promulgation.
Okay.
But they were actually sort of trying to seek persuasion from the bill before it was promulgated. And then I'm also dealing with another case, which involves consumer rights.
Okay.
And we've just finished another case where we quoted the Consumer Protection Act.
Okay.
And that case was involving a father. He had put the daughter at a school. And there was a provision in a standard contract which said if you withdraw your child and you don't give notice of a full term, then you forfeit all your fees for the whole term.
Okay.
And then we quoted that. It's not an unfair contract. And then we quote the consumer. We found it very nice.
And what was the outcome?
The case is yet to be given ruling on the 2nd of September.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think it should be positive.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it should be positive.
So, Tendai, as we round off our program, what will be your last words to the consumers, the business community out there? Some are aware and some not very aware of this Consumer Protection Act.
I think my last words would be that people need to be educated about this particular statute. For the consumers, it's good for them to know about this act so that they know how to protect themselves, they know how to enforce their rights. And on the part of the suppliers and service providers, they also need to know about this act, because this act puts certain obligations on these service providers and suppliers. So they need to be informed. Remember, ignorance of the law is not a defense. So they need to be equipped with information on how they can also protect themselves as suppliers. Consumers on the other end need to also know how they can protect themselves using this particular act.
And to you, Alex Majachani, what are your last words, your final words to the consumers, general members of the public, the business community out there who may end up being caught unawares?
Yes, Alois, thanks very much. I would like to urge the government and the government arms responsible for the administration of the Act to see to it that there's a program is going to be run, or programs to educate consumers. Because other than consumers, also talk about suppliers, because that's very critical. Because like I said, there are penalties in this act. You know, being lawyers, people think lawyers are hard-hearted, but we are very kind. So when we see this act, our hearts, they really pour out to say, what if someone is then jailed for 5 years because of ignorance? There are provisions which are far-reaching in terms of penalties. And I believe that the draft of the law wanted then to ensure that the consumer is adequately protected. But it places certain section of the society on risk. Because, you know, law is law. Regardless of whether it's just or unjust, or regardless of its moral content. Yeah. Okay. So that's basically what I would think. And also I would like to say to those who sell, say, you know, fast-moving consumer goods, or maybe retailers, supermarkets, they must ensure that they display prices, because that's partly the right of the consumer to information. There is a penalty for not displaying prices. So if the regulator really wants to be strict, we would see a lot of people caught on the wrong side of the law. But maybe I would say this as a, what can I say? There's also the problem of inflation, Alois.
Okay.
You might want to discuss. There is an obligation to display, but there's also a counter force of inflation.
Yes.
But I'm still urging them that law is law, regardless whether it's just or unjust. Yeah, but I wouldn't say it's unjust, but I believe that they just have to comply.
Well, viewers, our program has come to an end, and as I mentioned earlier on, these are colleagues who are hosting from Alex F. and Associates. To my right is Tendai Nyamanindi. Thank you, Tendai, for your time.
Thank you so
and
much.
And to my left is Alex Majachani. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vinga.
Fine. Yeah, welcome. For these and other programs, please do not hesitate to become a part of our more than 1 million viewers. And you can visit our website, www.newzimbabwe.com, our YouTube channel, newzimbabwe.com, our Facebook page, newzimbabwe.com. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of your viewing.